Thank you so, excuse me. Thank you so much, Meryl. There we go. Get the slides up. Hi to everybody, and thank you all for being here. I'm really personally thrilled, and Acquia and Project W are really happy to kind of be a part of this and hearing from all of you today. My name is Duncan Penfold Brown. I'm the Project W lead at Acquia, and yeah, given our time frame, I just want to dive right in. So I'm going to briefly introduce Acquia for those of you who haven't worked with us or spoken to us before. And then we're going to dive into talking about the specific problem of data discoverability in the WASH sector. So several others have kind of mentioned it before. But yeah, then we're going to lead on to how that brought about Project W, what Project W is, and how we're really working to represent kind of all WASH data and all WASH relevant data in the sector. Yeah, so let's hop right in. Next slide, please, Meryl. So who are we? Who is Acquia? We are a research and consulting organization, not for profit. In terms of consulting, we produce effects on the ground. We really go for working with local organizations and bridging the gap between funders and local programming. Ultimately, we're going to, we're trying to affect positive evidence-based, especially, and sustainable change. In terms of research, we focus on publications. So we have 44 peer-reviewed publications that we're really happy with. We also work all over the world. So we have 7 countries with full-time staff, including offices in Nairobi and Accra. And throughout our various projects, we've worked in 24 countries, that's past and present. So our goal, of course, is to advance global health through WASH, so access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene. I'd like to note also that we're very data-driven. So we use a lot of data. We're really committed to the data-driven sort of decision-making ethos, if you will. And because we do a lot of primary research, we generate a lot of data. We create a lot of primary data. So ultimately, we're really interested and invested in the direction of data and technology in the sector. So it is really quite thrilling to hear what everyone else is up to here. Okay, next slide. So to dive right into it, this is a bit of preaching to the choir because I think we're all really pretty convinced we have similar problems with data in the sector. But something I'd like to highlight was something that was said in the WASHWeb working group statement on using data better. So there's 2 points there that kind of stood out, right? These 2 points, how can we make publicly available data more accessible and more usable? And how can we incorporate data that is more difficult to find? Or how indeed can we even find data that's difficult to find? So I want to walk through this image. It's kind of chaotic, right? We have this sort of logo cloud here on the left, and it's meant to be chaotic. Effectively, it's trying to represent the world of data that we all work in. So say we're doing research or writing a proposal or planning the expansion of an existing program on rural water systems in West Africa. So we need data. Again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but we need to contextualize and understand the space. We need to provide evidence for funding, and we need to ultimately implement and plan effectively. We want to implement the best programs that we can, or help implement the best programs that we can. So what's out there for data? There are so many things. Many of you actually participate in some of these things, and for example, I think mWater is in there somewhere. But yeah, there are so many data sources that cover WASH and WASH relevant data. So this leads to our challenges, really. Ultimately, we want a fully hydrated data landscape to inform our project or our problem or our research. So the challenge is, how can we find that data? How can we be confident that we've covered everything or that we're not missing something that's critically important? And how much is that going to cost? How long is it going to take? Do we have the necessary staff, etc.? So this is really where Project W comes in. Hydrated landscape was a little WASH pun. You're welcome. So really, this is where Project W comes in, hopefully swoops in with its cape on. So let's talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. So what is Project W? First, I want to be really clear about what problem we're solving. So we're solving the problem of making existing data accessible. So what is it that Project W does? So we go out and we find all of the data that's relevant to WASH that we can. We organize that data, we annotate it, we curate it, and ultimately we make it discoverable or make it findable. So we're addressing this confidence gap in knowing what data is out there. One quick point on this is that by data, we really mean data. We're talking about publicly available or publicly discoverable data sets. So we're not yet generating or creating information in the field. For example, WASHWeb's database of organizations, we're not doing something like that. But that does provide us a lot of interesting areas for collaboration. So we're very happy to talk about that with kind of everyone on the call today. So what we're doing is we're building, call it what you will, an index, a catalog, a phone book. Ultimately, we're building this directory for all WASH and WASH relevant data. So what does that exactly look like? We have a directory, a platform, and then a service. So the directory is what I've talked about, a directory of all publicly available WASH data sets. We have a platform to expose that directory and to provide users utility to kind of search through and organize that data. And then we also offer a service. So I won't talk about this too much here, but generally we pride ourselves on our expertise in compiling and applying WASH data in the sector. So we offer this as a service. And if you're interested in that, again, please feel free to reach out. Quickly, to talk about who Project W is for, we developed Project W with three sort of categories of sort of users or audience in mind. And those would be governments, funders, and implementers. Each have sort of different and definitely overlapping, but specific data concerns. We thought, okay, these are the groups of people that will affect the most change in the WASH sector. So we want to kind of develop with them in mind. But ultimately, if you'll allow me to make sort of a cheesy point, Project W is really for people, right? It's for proposal writers or program developers, data analysts, implementation planners, anyone who's working with data to aid their WASH decision-making or their WASH efforts. So it's really kind of for all of us. We'll look a little bit more at the platform. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so just a few things to focus on here. We won't walk through all the details, of course. But yeah, the directory and the platform emphasize sort of two things. They emphasize curation. So that is, we have a number of categories that are arranged in a hierarchy with which we can tag public data sets. We also aim to curate sort of various fields that kind of populate a metadata spec for all of our data sets. So that involves mapping out data types, talking about the data contents, looking at the data update frequency, so on and so forth. We really aim to characterize all these public data sets, and we do that in order to make it as useful for users as possible, so you can very quickly understand what kind of data is out there for your particular problem space. Developing this metadata spec is a really interesting area for collaboration among the sector as well, so that's quite interesting. The other thing that the platform and directory emphasize is discoverability. So as you sort of see through these screenshots moving left to right, the platform has a hierarchy of categories that are both searchable and browsable. So you can browse data by category, or you can also just search for categories amongst the data. Data sets are all raw text searchable, and each data set is also identified with some kind of geography, which are searchable and browsable, and in the future, will be mappable. So that's sort of what we have here. At the far right, you end up with the data set details and a section that potentially highlights related data sets, which is also an interesting area for technological development. I know Nick mentioned something about knowledge graphs, and this is, potentially here, this gives us the ability to expose a bit of a data knowledge graph. For example, what data sets have been used to solve similar problems, to inform similar proposals, etc. So that's what Project W is. This is the directory and the platform we're talking about. Let's hop to the next slide if we can. So we can talk a bit about where we're going, where we're heading in the future. So there is a lot going on here in this space in general. It's one of the reasons it's really exciting to be here and hear about what everyone is working on. So this slide is a little intentionally busy. There's too much to talk through, totally. So I want to focus on a few highlights that will really kind of look at opportunities for discussion and collaboration amongst the sector. Before I do that, though, briefly, I'll say, we're developing our personnel side. So we're building editorial teams. We are involving WASH experts, which is something we would love to talk with all of you about, but to do sort of category and data curation sort of improvement. And we're also building review and support teams to really assist potential users of the Project W platform. Okay, but into the fun stuff to talk about, perhaps. Two things that Project W is really interested in. Katie actually still just brought this up earlier as well, focusing on sort of the down the chain sort of data interest is using the data, right? So basically, we'd like to use the data in Project W to sort of demonstrate the power of the tool itself, right? Having all the data in one place, organized and accessible, that actually gives you a really, I don't know, a powerful sort of access point to do analyses, to, you know, write proposals, etc. So we want to work with all of you and our clients and our users, etc., to do things like this and to potentially feature those on the platform going forward, particular data highlights or particular analyses that come in the field. Yeah, so that's one thing we're really interested in. The technological side is another thing that we're developing and investigating. So, you know, we have advanced automation, we have traditional AI, we have, like everyone, an interest in generative AI. Particularly, you know, some of the things I just heard from Nick on this sort of, was it the learning companion? Those are really interesting as we aim to sort of work with data in a way that is more about summarizing it or ingesting it into our data directory. Also, the traditional AI concerns that we, you know, maybe all have are the kind of the 3 R's of traditional AI, which are, you know, data set ranking, relevance, and recommendation. So those are always things that we're interested in. And we're interested in talking to other people who are working with those systems as well. So, yeah, but yeah, running low on time here, so I'll move on to the last slide, where we can just talk a little bit about collaboration. So there are so many opportunities, it feels like, for collaboration and working together. But just brainstorming based on what I've heard already today, you know, there are things we can do with WASHWeb. Obviously, Olivier Mills, who will talk about Wash AI in a second, you know, we've thought about how we can dovetail nicely together. Hearing about MWater and MWater's incredible sort of repository of data, you know, that's something we'd be really interested in talking about how to work together there. But ultimately, the important part is that we're talking about it and working together. So, yeah, I guess I'll conclude on that note with just a thanks to Nick and Mirel for hosting us here, and just a reminder that, you know, Project W is basically an effort in this space, right? We're working to find, organize, and expose all this WASH data and WASH relevant data in this kind of chaotic world of data that's out there. So, you know, can we make this available? Can we link up and talk about this and talk about what's useful here? Of course. So, you know, our contact detail is below, and yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again.